Broken hearted, broken mind. I feel just like I'm running out of time. Hands on the clock, start to unwind. So I take my thoughts, I write them down. Search and search until I hear the sound of the future in my heart. Give me a breakthrough, give me a start. But I'll do what it takes, I'll take all the pain. Take the sacrifices and the shame. What does it take to play the game? Maybe I'm a dreamer, I'm a dreamer. We believe in miracles, we can achieve the impossible.
Okay, well, that killed it right there. Welcome everybody back to Sheepdog Roundtable number 5. We have another fantastic panel here, and we're going to be talking about morale. First thing I'm going to do is pass it off. Thank you very much, Girly. My wife just passed me some dinner, so I'm going to be eating while we talk. And so the first things first, we're going to jump down the line and tell me who you are, what your background is, what you're doing now, that kind of stuff. Quick little blurb. Damien, take it away.
I'm Damien Robertson. I served with, actually, I get to serve with Jody Middick when 98 to 2002 and 1 RCR. I'm a tattoo artist now for 16 years, and I'm a veterans advocate, and I have a niche market where I get to tattoo at least 50% of my clientele are veterans. So, yeah.
Sweet.
That's pretty much what I do every day.
Awesome. Whitney, how about you?
Hey, so my name is Whitney Young. I served from 2001 to just this last October. So I rounded out my 20 years, started in the infantry, and then I worked my way into CSOR for the majority of my career. That's kind of where I ended up in mental health. So post uniform retirement, I work as a senior grievance analyst for the Military Grievance External Review Board, and I am a postgrad student doing my psychology through Adler. So that's me.
Wicked. Ash?
Hi, Ashley Doyle. I spent 21 years in the forces. Started with the reserves in Toronto with the 40 Hunters of Canada, and then moved on to the regular force. Served in the 1st and 3rd Battalions of the Royal Canadian Regiment, and retired February 2020.
Well, and what are you doing now?
A myriad of things, but right now I'm doing the podcast.
There you go. Adam.
Hey guys, Adam Kanakin. Pretty much I just talk for a living, so that's why I'm happy to be on here. After my time in service, I ended up in the private side of things. So I train internationally. I speak internationally in law enforcement and private security training for the most part. So that's what I do for my day job.
Sweet. Dave? There we go. Thatch. Perfect.
Yeah.
Dave, you with us?
For the invite. Yeah.
No worries.
Thanks for the invite, buddy. Yeah, I spent a while in the reserves here in Montreal and did a bit of time in Afghanistan, came back and made some humans, taught high school science, realized it wasn't for me anymore, and I transferred my teaching skills to lose fat and get strong. Dave Moral PT to help veterans primarily, but dads get fit, strong, and take care of the kids for the foreseeable future. I like Adam. I guess I'm a talker now too. I get on the podcast and spit whatever I'm feeling during the day and have some awesome guests in the meantime. So thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Sweet. My pleasure, man. Always happy to have you on. Jody, who are you?
Yes, sir. Jody Middick. I joined in 1994. I joined the Lawrence Scots in Brampton and Georgetown. In 97, I joined 1 RCR. Went to Kosovo, Kabul, and Kandahar with them. Got blown up in 2007 on my last tour. After that, there's a lot you can Google. But let's just say that I landed here tonight on your show because of it.
Outstanding.
And it's a pleasure to be here with such a illustrious group of people. and so many ex-Royals. That's awesome. There's enough of us here to hold quorum, I think.
I didn't actually think about it when I did the guest list, but then as I was like, everyone popped up like, oh shit, oh.
About time.
Yeah. Satch, give me who you are, what a little bit about yourself, brother.
My name's Satch. Law enforcement, canine handler. Went to RMC for a couple of years, and then that was the extent of my military service. And then since then, I've been trying to raise money and awareness for mental health for first responders and current military staff. And I try to run by doing that. So, last year I ran 100K. On the 7th of November, raised 21 grand for the local BC Yukon Legion. And now this year I'm trying to raise 30,000 for Honor House, and attempting to run 840 kilometers in 8 days. And next year I'll do similar, and then 2025 run across Canada in record time. And goal is to raise $1 million for first responders.
Out fucking standing. So going for just light jaunts here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, making the rest of us look lazy. Thanks.
I haven't run more than 10 feet since I released.
Really?
Well, here's the thing. I want to interrupt for a second. You guys have done a lot more shit than I've ever done, so it's about time I did something.
Roger that, man.
Amen.
That's awesome.
Love it. So today, the reason I have y'all here is I want to talk about morale. Morale is something that it is a very, I think it's a very personal thing. Like, you are definitely in charge of your own morale throughout your time doing whatever it is you're doing. But it's also affected by so many things, right? Your leadership being one of them, what kind of leeways you have if there's, hard lines versus slightly spongy barriers in terms of rule sets. Uniforms, what you're allowed to bring out in the field or not be able to bring, what you can and can't wear, all kinds of stuff goes into it. So, what are you giggling about?
Yeah, sorry. So my thing with my service was that I knew I was a volunteer, right?
Yep.
And I could say I quit at any time and stuff. So, and I hear what you're saying. And, in 1RCR back in the 90s, when I got there was a big push to keep out kit. And it's just funny that you said that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Mountain Equipment Co-op had opened, and all the guys were getting all the nice snivelly stuff, and the units, and the system was looking bad, and generals were embarrassed, etc. And it became such a game to see if you could put a Camelback in the top pouch of your ruck. And
I remember that.
Whenever the RSM wasn't looking, you're like, like you feel like you're a fucking assassin if you pull out like an Nalgene water bottle, like
or you were wearing poly,
like it's a flask or some shit, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, sorry. So, and I remember just realizing, like, the more you complained about it, the less it mattered.
Yeah.
Right? Sorry. The less you complained about it, the less it mattered. And what I realized is, if these are the boots that the Army chose, you know what? I'm just going to try and figure out how to use them and stuff like that. So the term improvise, adapt, overcome, I felt, put the onus on you to keep your morale up when it came to kit stuff, right? Because those are the things that are completely out of your control, And, when I was in snipers, we wanted to buy these cameras. This was like 2002 or something. And we could have taken a picture and sent it over the radio every like 5 or 10 minutes, like one picture, and they said no. And I was like, you know what, that's cool, because that's 10 pounds I don't have to carry, and and I'll just draw it for them and give it to them 3 days after their attack, the image of the target. Anyway.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is that it's up to you regardless. Right, it's your personal prerogative to maintain your own.
We just started, so I don't want to say yeah, that's it. I don't want to be Jocko, Jocko it out. But ultimately, right, we're not Russian, which is a way of saying, like, you were not conscripted to serve. Nobody like showed up at your house and made you go be a cop and play with dogs and all that, and etc. So, I don't know. I felt like at any time it was I could leave. So it's up to me to decide what kind of day I'm gonna have. Even after I got blown up, like
Yeah.
my kid's mom would get frustrated with me, and I would just say, I'm in a good mood because that's my decision. Because I'm here today because of the decisions I made.
No, that's a great point. That's actually what I was going to ask was, what are your guys' takes on morale and how personal of a position it is versus external? So anybody else want to jump on that? No, everybody's quiet.
I think Jody's point about Kit is interesting. I'm gonna play devil's advocate, just because that's what I like to do. I think Kit is one of those things where it's a double-edged sword. Usually, for Kit, the reason why we have everybody have the same shit is so that when it sucks, everybody sucks at the same rate, right? It sucks for everybody. So it kind of, as much as it's a benefit for that guy who can sneak Kit on into even if you're running an FTX or whatever, I can sneak something in, that's great. But the problem is my fucking fire team partner or whatever sitting there, and if I'm not sharing with him, he's sitting there, he's like, well, fuck, what the hell, right? Like, everybody else in the section's like, how come they get this? And
why wouldn't you share?
Well, okay, you can only share so many Twizzlers, right? Like, but there's only so many.
Hang on, listen. I hear what you're saying, but look, when I was on country, right? I'm wearing Loa boots. I'm carrying off-shelf gear. Don't get me wrong. My point is that the gear presented is not the issue. Your attitude is the issue, right? That's my
degree, though. To a degree, and
right.
I'll add my point onto that as well. But Adam, do you want to finish off?
No, it's as much as it's great to have all the high speed and snivel kit and all that kind of stuff, it's really a benefit to you, and it's kind of everybody else that's there. They may or may not have it. When we're talking about actual deployments, I mean, you should carry what you want, right? As long as it doesn't affect your battle readiness, you should be able to carry whatever the fuck you want, wear what you want, whatever's going to make you do the job. But when it comes to those training environments, especially, I mean, there's a reason why we have that, right? There's we've loosened up with the CF. I mean, when I released 2015, a lot has changed since then, right? I mean, look at dressing.
Bro, they can have beards and smoke weed now,
dude.
It's awesome,
right?
It's like, look at me now. I'm like, I'm 45, retired. I could have done that back when I was 25. That would have been awesome.
You could go in right now, perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
Right. So
they'd be like, "What's up, new guy?" Oh, what's up?
That's just shit. But no, I mean, and not to discount your point, because I agree with you, but like I said, just play devil's advocate. I mean, the military is a special beast because we do that for a very specific reason, right?
Yeah.
Law enforcement's very similar.
Well, I know I've dominated the conversation, so I'm just gonna say, like,
we're only 13.
One thing. Well, how long are we talking for?
2 hours. We got some time, brother.
Oh my God. Oh geez. Okay. Adam, I get your point. But I guess I don't know. This is the thing with like, we're stuck on something as simple as the matter of kit when we're here to talk about spirit, really.
Yeah.
Right?
Jody, if I may.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jump on there, Ash.
I think there's definitely layers to this conversation, and we're going to get onto, I think, the rest of the stuff that Jody's talking and touching on.
Yeah.
Adam, what I'll say about Kit is I understand the mutual suffering and the aspect that it's trying to achieve, but you can achieve the same end states through training and not necessarily through conditioning of subpar equipment and clothing. If we're going to have, and there shouldn't be two standards. There shouldn't be a standard in domestic in country during FTXs, and there shouldn't be another standard when you're talking about operational, because we want them to be, if we want people to be the most effective that they're going to, it's the same adage, train as you fight. So even their clothing and how they pack their rucks and when they change out their clothes, all of that type of stuff is going to develop and build into those habits. And we don't want to be constantly changing that just because we're trying to achieve a different narrative for mutual suffering and creating fundamentals so that they understand what hardship is. We can achieve the same thing. I think that they've definitely come leaps and bounds since the 90s. You know, like they've come leaps and bounds from the type of clothing now, and I'm not talking about, you know, the wool from back in the day, but they've come leaps and bounds from what they have now. And what they have now is amazing compared to when we first joined. But there is still always room for improvement. So I just wanted to add that part about the kit, and I could definitely see what Jody's talking about as far as the spirit and taking ownership. And being self-disciplined, because we have to look at the root definition of the word morale as well to figure out, you know, what it's speaking to and where we're going.
Like if it's a Swiss seat or a Petzl propel harness, to me, it's like, you know, it's you have something to do the job. So let's just get on with the job.
Yeah, because the kit will add to effectiveness. Like the individual is either effective or ineffective or effective as far as their overall performance and their capabilities. But the kit just helps maintain that consistency within that capability. It's one thing that we can absolutely control. It's one thing that the military can control that's outside of the uncontrollable, which is basically come first contact, right? So that's kind of what I'm getting at. If it's going to give you that advantage, well then let's do it.
And to Adam's point though, and to what I was trying to say too, is like, you know, that stuff evolves, as you said, and, you know, as you said, things change, man. And, you know, like I would have loved to have the kit the kids get now, but, you know, it is what it is. You know, guys survived in the Arctic with that cotton honeycomb long underwear, and I have no idea how they did it. It was right before my time. And
don't discredit those scarves. Those scarves were the bomb.
Yeah, they're long enough to be a blanket.
They're long enough to be everything.
So
they're the greatest piece of kit. The greatest piece of kit ever issued.
Yeah. What are your guys' thoughts on it? Morale being personal choice versus external.
Actually, I wanted to hop on the kit train for just a minute, only because I think there's like an excellent platform for me here, being the lone survivor. Kit for women doesn't exist. In the military, it's a joke. So there's a very, very big difference for, you know, specifically women. So, you know, in 2001, when I joined the infantry, we'd only been women in combat arms for a few years by then. So like at that point, it was somewhat understandable. But I can say that it was a detriment to me when I served in SOF because the minimum load standard didn't fit on my gear physically. Like there was not enough MOLLE on my chest rig to attach the number of mags I needed and the other bags. And then you take a plate that's not designed to fit the front of me and everything else on the back. And I think that kind of ties into the aspect of like morale and how much you can control. Because I think anybody who served with me, I can be a bit of a jokester. And that's it with gear that doesn't fit me and designed for a man and probably 3 sizes too large. But I think it comes down to grit. And grit is something that can't be taught, which kind of leans into what I think Ashley is saying, is that, you know, in our domestic training, I don't agree with this is where the suck is supposed to happen, because I believe that's where the cognitive aspects of our training is supposed to happen. And we're refining those cognitive and physical fine motor skills so that when the shit hit the fan and we start moving through Colonel Grossman's colors and we lean towards the black, we're going to get rid of those gross and move towards the fine motor skills. And if we're swapping out kit and we're not training one way, brains to be working in a function for pieces of equipment we're not actually wearing, it's just not functional. And I mean, happy soldiers are hardworking soldiers typically. So I mean, if that means we spend a little more money on R&D and maybe get some gear that fit people, or I mean, go as far as the new boot for Gen, right? Like allow people to buy what fits for them within the parameters of what we're lining. You got happy feet, good to go. And I mean, Jody, like not to go down a hole here, but when Jody, when you said, you know, we make the kit work, we do. We absolutely do make the kit work. But 20 years later, like my neck and back and like 18 stress fractures in my feet, maybe we could have done it a different way. Those are, you know,
Sure.
you know,
I guess. Yeah.
like ponytails are great, but I'm not sure that that's what we need as women in the forces, let alone the combat arms. I probably lean towards a plate carrier that fits me a little better. But I mean, you know, ponytails make us look good for the enemy.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Gotta keep
For our
it here, gotta keep it
Snapchat.
shoot, right? I don't know.
So no, so when we end up like in Ukraine or Russia, we can go on Snapchat or Tinder or whatever those guys were
There you
using,
go.
right?
Yeah. Hit
Oh,
hit
wow.
up the locals. Just in
Tinder's
case
pretty
you
good
need
for the
to.
morale.
You can't do that without a ponytail. You cannot do that with a ponytail.
Damien, what about you? Got any points on this? Before I jump in and tell everybody what's what?
I don't know. I mean, like, as far as morale, I mean, like, it was kind of the people around you. I mean, like, environments affect everything, right? You could be in a shitty environment, but if you're all laughing at the suck together, it doesn't matter what you have or what you're going on, right? So, I mean, like, you know, my time overseas was very short, but I mean, like, it's funny when you got a bunch of guys looking at the stupidity of situations you're put into by some of the higher ups, and you're just like, all right, well, here's a lead fucking blanket. We're going to put that at the bottom of your AVGP. And what's that for? I'm like, oh, landmines. I'm like, oh, great. We're a good laugh. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's
If
go
the
for a
mine
drive,
goes
you
off,
know?
you're gonna surf the blanket
Yeah,
as you
straight
fly
up.
through the air like
Yeah, you
Alibaba.
remember that. And like,
Yeah.
oh, that's some funny shit,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But I mean, like, if you're not sitting there laughing at the stupidity of it, I mean, like, it's going to be a shit show. You're going to be sitting in the corner going like, oh, like, what the hell, dude? And it doesn't matter what you're wearing. You could be high speed, but if you're not switched on, it doesn't matter, right? Like, so.
Doesn't matter what boots you got on when you get your fucking legs blown off.
That's a great.
Well,
that
he
is a
went
great
there.
point.
He went there.
Yeah, we went there.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Well, here.
How
Okay, so
many
here's my
years
point.
does it come back from that?
I don't know. You're over
This
there
is-
complaining about fractures in your feet, and I'm like, really? I'd love to have fractures in my feet right now.
Perfect.
Wait,
Satch is back on here, so we can get his.
thanks so much.
So,
15
Sash.
years ago.
How about you, Sash? What about kit or personal morale versus external morale?
I don't know. I kind of look at it from a different perspective, or at least just from my perspective.
Yeah,
I don't know. I work in law enforcement for a lot of years. I don't know, 7. And I tried to figure out ways to increase or maximize morale in the place I was working at. But inevitably, you're not going to get it 100%, right? And frustrating, and it tends to be frustrating and irritating. Comes out in your work, or at least it did. So I started thinking, okay, my best, increase morale. And I came to the conclusion the best way was to leave work and start running. Because essentially, it raises their morale that I'm doing something quite significant. And I'm also not just doing it for them, I'm doing it for a lot of other people. And really, I'm not doing it. So it raises people's morale when I explain the story and kind of, so I want to control how I impact people, and I want to be able to do it. So I don't want to rely on anyone else because my standards are somewhat different than most. So I'll just do it myself.
That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I'm
Personal
done.
responsibility.
Yeah, no, it's all good. The point that I always wanted to make, especially about kit, is that, or about morale, sorry, is that it is 98% personal will, right? It's about you making good of the situation. But sometimes that 98% just fucking isn't enough, man. And as to Whitney's point, is that with kit, it's very personal. And to everyone here that knows, train like you fight. So to have 2 sets of kit, or to have like your field stuff be different than your overseas stuff, you're not training the same way because you have different setups, right?
I don't.
And so in the where, to use a really bad trope, where the metal meets the meat right? You want to be streamlined as best as you possibly can for that environment. So, like, for me, let's just say I'm a big, tall dude, right? Most stuff doesn't fit me. Whitney, probably the same thing on the opposite end of it, right? It's a bitch because nothing, you're, instead of being focused on a mission or on the item, you're thinking about how the fact that the skin is being rubbed off my my hips because the flak jacket is not tall. It's in that middle range where it's not short enough that it doesn't actually hit my hips, and it's just constantly biting my hips constantly over and over every step I take. And you think about that when you're on patrol, when you should be thinking about other stuff because you're just like, it's ripping the skin off. But if you train separately, so another issue was I got issued a different vest the day I got overseas. So I was like, oh, sweet. I don't know where this shit is. And then I got to switch guns, and I had to switch kit again. So if you don't have what you are going to use, then the skill sets in which you utilize those things are going to be lesser. And by using your skill sets at a lesser level, that affects your morale. Because it's a personal, like, I have personal pride in how well I can use the C9. I do. But if you give me a different setup the day before I'm supposed to use it, I'm not going to be as skillful, which is going to affect my morale, which is going to affect everything down the line. And then, but I understand also the point you made, Adam, with training, is that if you're going to suffer, right? Somebody's going to suffer. We should all suffer. And I remember sitting in the field with everybody else wearing my fucking gloves. Those leather gloves, you know, the ones that were camouflage. I don't know if you guys remember those ones. Anybody? Yes, no?
I still got them. They're
the
awesome.
tempered gloves.
Still
Yeah.
got them? In the freezing cold, because that was the one that the instructor picked, and you're like, okay, cool, suffer a little bit, right? Yeah, we're all suffering. There's also
I'd be
the point-
laughing.
Yeah. Well, here's the other point: is that if there's better equipment, why aren't we using it?
Well, no, but that's a
It's a loaded question.
right? And first of all,
I don't know if you
first of all-
remember what
first of all,
forces you
what's
served
better?
with, my friend.
No. Hey, look, guys, look. We our personal combat gear is some of the best in the world, guys. Like, you know, I've worked with everybody. We have some of the best in the world. Okay. Like, and what's better and what are you using it for? Right? Like, a boot's a boot at the end of the day. I'm not trying to be a dick here, but you know, it's the job you're hired to do, right?
Mhm.
You know, and you know, morale, you know, it's such a thing here. Look at we've spent this entire time talking about gear. You know, never mind mental technique, never mind personal reflection, never mind you know, the daily affirmations every single one of us does. I know, because we're those types of motherfuckers. Because we wake up every day, because we're that 1% that as we drive, yeah, okay, I'm not in Kandahar, but I'm still gonna double check, you know, my blind spots before every intersection, et cetera, because that's just the way I do it, man. And I like it, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, my wife hates it. I can't drive with my wife because of that.
No, but you know what I guess, you know, and I keep going back to my original point is that, you know, it's like, you know, where you are and what you're doing, like C9, whatever your setup, like you're a pro, man. Like, grab that thing, put it in the shoulder, rock it, you know, take down the enemy. Like, I know you can't. Listen, in combat, I literally switched weapons with a guy, man, and switched back. Like, it just happens, you know. So
Sash, you had a point. Hold on a minute before, Joey,
yeah,
before
go
you
ahead.
keep going. Sash, what do you got?
Sounds like the fundamental with this, right? Like, you don't really get a say. You don't get to decide that. The government decides that. You have zero control.
Yeah.
What do you control? How you respond to the things that you're.
Yeah.
And then how do you train with the people that you train with, right? And then being the best at that thing that they give you, even though it's shit.
Fucking right.
Makes no difference.
I have a comment or question for Sash, and I think this will maybe take this conversation from Kit. I'm gonna segue.
Hell yeah.
Segue for
this.
me. Nice. Give me.
Sash, where are you out of, brother?
I live in Vancouver area, man, BC.
Okay. So, because here's my question. I'm sure you've heard of what Calgary just, the stuff that came down from their administration about the thin blue line patches, right?
Oh yeah.
So my question, because that is kit related, but I think that plays a lot into morale when we talk about
Hell yeah.
why. First of all, obviously, I don't expect the public to understand jack about shit when it comes to, how we choose to remember our brothers and sisters. But when it comes to something like that, how how much do you think that actually will affect that service and then services from across the country when we have our administrations telling us, hey, I don't care what this means to you. Somebody in their basement, some keyboard warrior said that this upset their aunt's niece's kitten, and so now you can't wear it. And obviously the comparison has been brought up similar to that of the poppy, right? And
Yeah,
so I just want to get your thoughts on that, dude, because you're still actively serving. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, man. That's a great question. Um, so if it comes down from the administration that you're a blue line, that means we're then voicing our opinion that we disagree with that, right? So then I guess we could disagree with it with management. Next step would be speaking with the rest of the team, i.e., peers. What's their vibe? How are they feeling? Is everyone on the same page? Maybe some people don't. Maybe some people do. I don't know, right? Based on that, you'd want to figure out what's the real issue and why, and then create a strategy and steps moving forward from there. Roughly.
That's a very succinct way to do it. I mean, ideally, that's what you want in anything, right? And actually, I thank you,
Yeah.
Adam, because you actually just led me into my next point right here. So it worked seamlessly. Was that the way in which you wear your uniform changes the level of morale, right? And there's been all kinds of things in that realm with the wristbands initially, right? When the
Actually, can I just jump in on that real quick, man?
Yeah, man. Give her.
Yeah, that's actually. I'm glad you brought that up. You can put me in any kind of uniform, and it's pretty legit because I'm already preparing myself before I put myself in that uniform. So I look the part. Step one, I gotta look like to be, I guess, the type of person to be in that uniform. Number two, you can make it look crisp no matter what it is. So you can at least carry yourself with your tie and you own that uniform no matter what it is. And I know I have a lot of friends that are in law enforcement. Some of them are very happy about where they are in the moment. They can still own. There's no they years plus to get you. Somebody else own that uniform other than the person wearing it. At least.
I got most of that. Did you guys get most of that? Sorry, you're cutting in and out. Just your signal's not great right now, but it's all good.
Try turning off your video, bro. Just do audio for a bit.
Okay.
You could just go audio if you want to turn your video off. That might help with.
I'm on it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, that solves that problem. The point that I was going to make was is that little things that mean a lot to the boys that increase morale, like patches, or the wristbands, or the thin blue line, as you were saying, Adam. Those little knickknacks that don't really affect the overall uniform. What are you guys' thoughts on those? Because I think, for sure, why not? Right? Who are you hurting by putting a patch on your shoulder while you're wandering around?
I think it depends on the patch. I think we've all seen a few that aren't necessarily appropriate depending on who's wearing it and where you're wearing it. But I mean, I'm I'm all for it. I think at the end of the day, you have to. I think what the military does a piss poor job at is recognizing that every single person is a different human being, and saying
What? We
like,
are?
yeah. And so everybody has their. We have to give human beings. We have to give each individual a way to express themselves as an individual, and that can be in a big
Ridiculous.
way, but it can also be in a very small way. And for some people need that affirmation, that public acknowledgement. They need to be pulled out on parade and given that, hey, fucking good job. Some people are just like, dude, just let me wear a patch. And that's all they need, and that's for them. That's maybe it could be something as small as that. So I think, especially from from a leadership position, finding a way to recognize that within the people that are in your charge and figuring out what works for which individual, and then letting them accomplish that and facilitating that for them. And so, little patches, if that's what somebody needs to be fucking happy, I mean, I don't see the harm in that. Now, of course, obviously we have to fall under, all the regs and everything, but I mean, if we have the opportunity, I say let it ride.
Yeah. Makes
If I
sense.
could just, if I could just chance.
Dave, yeah, by all means.
Brings up a few things that just from what you guys are talking about here, and like the ability to control your environment. Everything we're talking about here is like very stuff that you can control, right? The case in point, like Satchel was saying, like you can rock, look sharp, go. Is like it comes down from the chain that you can't wear that patch. Okay, cool. But that also brings up one of Jocko's episodes where he was talking about rolling out and his teams had that patch. That they weren't allowed to wear because they're working with the army, right? And they're like, don't wear that patch. But then he saw the pictures of all his boys wearing the patch, and he didn't shit on them because he's like, look, I realized that this was a unifier. This was something that as a leader, I'm not going to spend my capital on that. And I really respected it. I remember I had a warrant officer years ago, and boots, right? I had my knees were just always sore and shit, and I didn't like them. But I changed the soles. I don't know if you guys did any of the Vibram sole shit, but I was like, I was one of the few guys at my unit because I saw another guy do it. I'm like, man, my life in the military, my lead after, and he pulled me aside. He's like, hey, Mario, you got your boots changed. He goes, that's it's against the regs, right? I'm like, yeah, warrant got me. Like I got a fresh pair. He's like, no. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, within and you're pushing the limits just a little bit. He's like, whenever you see a soldier do that type of stuff, you realize what they're doing, but also there's a certain level of professionalism that comes with, hey, I want to be better at my job and I want to be more functional within the boundaries, and those by nature. So I always a little bit, but there's also that that respect you got to have for the chain of command as well. So I always that one. My troops do, like, are they changing little things? Okay, why are you changing that little thing? Like, is it too far over the line? And that brings me to like when I was working in Valcartier, like I don't know if it's an idea why they do it. I don't know why the Patricias do it either, but the bottom button done on your uniform, I don't know. I was like, that's cool shit. Like I saw them like that's I don't know. So in the bottom button undone, it's like verboten at my unit. I was like, what are you doing? But I just thought that was really interesting because I was like owning my uniform because I was a rebel, right? I had that bottom button undone. I'm like, well, I saw some cool guys do it in the Patricias, so I'm going to do it too. I saw some Van Du like they do too, and that kind of thinking just kind of took over, right, for a little bit, and then they clamped down. All that to be said is that if you can own a little bit and just push the boundaries just a little bit, like that's where you can see a bit of growth and just a little bit of transformation. Like Adam was saying, like you can own a little bit. And it's like it's for you, right? It's like, fuck, yeah, I have that bottom button undone. Nobody feel good today. But
Dave, I don't want to burst your bubble. I legit thought that dudes kept their bottom button open because they're too fat to sit down in their uniform. So every time I saw someone with a bottom button, I was just like, dude, are you that fat that your uniform doesn't stretch? So like there you are being like, I'm so badass. And I'm like, bro.
But where are you walking around with this button undone?
Well,
Cody's gonna come over there and knife at you right now.
No, but like is he in the field or is he sitting around the duty center where people come to visit the unit with the button undone, right?
Duty center.
That's what I'm asking.
Good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
in Garrison.
I got a point, couple actually.
Yeah, man. Give her.
I think just along the line of what we're talking about right now, I think that definition, individual definition for us for morale changes as you per se progress through your career, or you take on different responsibilities, or you get to different rank levels. The reason why I say that is this. Sure, the privates, corporals, they're probably concerned with a patch to improve the morale, and changing things up, making small variations to the uniform that they wear. But one thing that I have a problem with and had a problem with was the fact that the military was more concerned about beards and boots and cannabis and patches than the fact that they're a combat ineffective military.
Hell yeah.
And now, if I just walk that back a little bit, I think that, yes, those things change now. And I used to have this conversation all the time. It would always come up. There was always somebody who you'd hear a comment and somebody would say, "Oh, I'm a field soldier. I'm not a garrison soldier." And
bullshit.
I would always pull that guy aside and I would say to him, "Listen, man, I understand what you're trying to get at, but if you were a professional soldier, you would be effective in both areas, and we wouldn't be having this conversation right now." So I do believe that people are always kind of trying to push the limits, in little small nuances in different ways, as Dave was saying. But I think that overall, as the forces go, and even as large organizations go or institutions, right now, currently, they're putting their focus into the wrong areas because they're not putting their focus into being a cohesive unit or a cohesive fighting force or even combat effective. They're focusing on all the other stuff because, I don't know, lack of weak leadership. They don't want to take on the big issues. I don't know what it is, but
I have an idea.
Oh no.
all right, let me just hold on. Let me just. I'll finish this up, Jody, and then I know you're going to dive right in.
I mean, I'll say it if you won't. So go ahead, finish.
But all I was going to say was that once again, I think that your individual morale, depending on what your position is and what you're doing, and how long you've served, even, I think that's a curve and it changes over time, and then it changes to not necessarily because you're just of a higher rank that you want to take on and look at it from a different perspective. But I think that those smaller things that maybe when you first joined that you really thought were important and mattered, no longer. And then as you get, as you spend more time and you get a little more longer in the tooth, you start realizing the things that actually matter. And you start realizing the deep underlying root problems that we face that are not being addressed because they're being covered up with the boots and the beards and the patches and the ponytails, Whitney, and all these things. And we're not focusing on the shit that matters. Yeah. And that's my problem.
Yeah.
Bang on.
I 100% agree. What do you got, Mick?
Yeah.
You're gonna add anything?
He's lost it.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I was gonna say, well, we know why this is happening because that's the mandate from our leadership at the federal level. That's how they want the forces to behave, right? I remember when I was still in city council and NDHQ was across from City Hall, and I went over and had a chat with the general there that has to do some community service now. And he told me that there was an entire Reg Force battalion. Thank you for your community service. Like I said, sorry, it's personal between him and I. He's a dick. Okay. Anyway, but my point, this is so before he had to do community service anyway, and him and I were talking. He straight up said like the Canadian Forces is combat ineffective at the Reg Force at the like tier 1 level, so to speak, just the regiments because of the mental health and the perceived lack of morale to fighting spirit or whatever it was. And and I said to him, I said at the time, I said, well, in my opinion, it's we don't have any soldier traditions and stuff like that. Like we don't have like 10,000 years of tradition like they do in Japan and Europe and stuff. So maybe that's where we're immature that way. But what was I? Sorry, I lost my point. to what. But anyway, that was one of my points, is that the leadership now is mandating, like, General Ear just said we can't even compete with the Russians up north.
Yeah.
Like, so let's look at what does that do with morale from leadership, right? What does that what that signals to me? And I said this to my American, but I just remembered something I wanted to say. So anyway, that the way our government's behaving, we're being positioned to be irrelevant on a world stage militarily, right? And so on that's what kicked me into my last thought, is that as you progress, guys, and as you mature in your job as well, I think one thing that this is my perspective, is that I was working next to everybody else in the world, the Americans, the British, the Dutch, etc. And you start to compare yourself to them in that, like as a professional, tough guy, or in our case, in my case, infantry, sniper, out there doing the job. I'm a professional. And so, I wanted to look, squared away, at all times whenever I was around these people. Field is one thing, training's another thing, like t-shirts and short shorts and flip-flops on the range, awesome. But when it's time to do the job in the spit and polish, office setting, so to speak, that's where I think, you start to see morale and your ability to see yourself as a professional allows you to see how, to the last point, to see the bigger picture, Yeah. But I want to carry on to the point that was brought up about what's going on with the Canadian Forces leadership.
I was just going to get into leadership on this one, and
awesome.
This is great. I haven't had to make a segue yet. Ash, yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, just to touch on what Jody was saying, it's those customs and traditions.
Yeah.
Right. They're being dismissed, and as annoying as it was to polish, shine, whatever it was, leather, brass, all those things, all those small, what we would consider annoying or time-consuming things, especially for the new individuals. Adam, this kind of goes to your point as well, is that also in itself created a form of self-discipline.
Yeah.
By having them do those things over and over and over again. And that then led to pride in oneself. It led to pride in accomplishment. It led to pride in appearance. And when you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you do good. And that's what it just by the nature of doing those actions increase that personal morale. But also,
sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Sorry. No, it reminds you, it's for the guys who came before you, the royals before you, the guys.
Absolutely.
You gotta look good for them.
And that goes back to Satch's part as well, when it doesn't matter what the uniform is or what it looks like, your demeanor, your self-worth, your professionalism, the way you carry yourself, the morals and the values that you have, you're going to take ownership of that, and you're going to make it the best that it can be, regardless of how much it may suck or what the expectations are. You're going to do what you do because that's who you are. And the last thing I'll just say about morale is, there's personal morale, but there's also institutional morale, right? And we would call that esprit de corps. And you can't have esprit de corps in the institution if you can't maintain belief in it. And that's the issue that they're facing right now. And that goes to what Jody was saying about the leadership and everything, and the actions that are being taken. You're almost going to get to that. Unfortunately, there's going to be a self-induced decision point where it's like, do I stay or do I go? Right? Like the Kool-Aid stand is gone. So now it's, if you can't maintain belief in the institution, I don't want to use that word loosely, but in the organization of the institution, then what do you have left? And that's because that's what the esprit de corps is, right? You can maintain, like Damien was saying, you can maintain that individual morale with you and your peers, right? Brothers and sisters, because realistically, those are the ones you're suffering with anyways, and those are the ones you're fighting with. And when you're doing that and you're in those situations, nothing else matters. So, but that only goes so far, right? You can and that's one of the things that I miss is those experiences of being out there, even when it did suck the most, and being able to appreciate that the most as well. But if the belief goes in the macro, right? If the belief goes in the institution, then we're in a real shit state.
We don't preach enough faith anymore, so to speak. Like, as much as it might suck, we got to have faith that the Canadian Armed Forces is still run and it's full of people like us. Like we're still out there, right? So I think it's I have faith that we're gonna get it back together at some point.
So this
as annoying as you found it, having to recite the regimental prayer before every meal.
I don't remember it, but I'd go to dinner and get yelled at by the CSM right now if I couldn't recite it. That's how much I love it.
I want to talk about
leadership
specifically. So because we have people of all different ranks here, and that were in and out and all these other things, but how in a leadership role, how do you maintain not only your personal morale, because you're in a leadership role now, but also the morale of your troops, right? Because if the biggest issue that they have is, everywhere I walk, it feels like I'm standing on nails, right? That's a big issue because they have a job to do. And if their feet are fucked up, they can't do their job. So for me, as in a leadership role, I would look at that and be like, Vibram Souls will fix that. Get them. Don't give a shit, right? You're more effective at your job. Another kid comes up and says, I really want to wear this patch. Oh, fuck. All right. Is it going to affect your role? No. I don't give a shit, right? You got a uniform on, you got your stuff on, you're good to go. Fucking good to go. But at the same time, like if it's just, I want to wear, I don't know, I can't even think of an example right now. If it was just superfluous, right? If it had no benefit to morale and they just wanted something, right? What?
Which level of leadership are we?
I want whatever your last level of leadership was. How do you maintain? Because like Damon, you were a private, right? When you got out?
I was a corporal when I got
corporal,
out.
there you go. So you're looking junior leadership there. We got a couple warrants. We got we had a couple officers, not anymore. But I want to know, like, what is your personal level of leadership in taking that morale onto your leadership plate, so to say? Who wants to jump on?
I'll start it off, I guess.
Give her, Adam.
I don't know.
Whitney will be next.
Or Whitney can go. Go ahead, Whitney.
Okay.
There you go.
Damn it.
Pressure.
I was gonna say. Oh, poop. I had it and then I dropped it. Give me a sec.
I'll go.
Send it. Go. Okay, we're tagging.
Okay.
So, obviously,
I
finished. When I left, I was kind of company 2IC. I was a training officer for our regiment. That's where my last position was before I released. For me, I always try to tie, and a lot of this is going to come from people that are a lot smarter than I am, where I just absorbed their information that they were telling me. So this isn't coming from me. And one thing is obviously I tie morale into motivation. Keeping people motivated, and to do that, first thing you have to do is you have to plug in. You have to know your troops. You have to know the people that you're working with, and you have to understand who they are, not just on a professional level, but on a personal level. You also need to, when I say motivated, I mean everybody has their own reasons for or what things that we like to do, right? And so if you know that if I have a guy who has just been like kind of hard to get a hold of, and he's kind of all over the place. Maybe he's disenfranchised because he's been trying to get on a special course for the last 2 years and he keeps getting passed over by people. Knowing that and saying, hey man, listen, I understand you want to get on this course. I will guarantee you that I will put you on that, but this is what I need from you for the next 6 months until you step off for that. I need this is what I need you to be doing. And having those frank discussions with them, saying, listen, this is what we expect. And this is what we can do, and we want to get you where you want to go. And everybody's different, right? Everybody everybody has that thing that they want to do or the thing that they love doing. And so knowing what that is and trying to facilitate that for every individual as best you can. Obviously, you can't do that all the time, but if you know the people then you're able to better do that. And obviously for us, it wasn't me that would know all of those intricacies, right? Obviously that's what your NCOs are for, but they are able to relay up to us and say, hey, listen, I have a guy who's switched on, and if we can get him on this course, it's really going to help him out. Awesome. Let's make it work. Let's find a way to make that happen. And so those types of things, same for deployments, right? Especially on the reserve side of things, that's what you're always fighting for, right? You're always fighting to get guys on deployments. And so that's one big thing for me is understanding the motivation, and personal motivation. The way I kept my morale high was I focused in on the stuff that I was motivated in. Stuff that I like. For me, when I come to work now, the reason why, and Chance will know this, and Dave knows this when because we talk quite a bit. I'm always upbeat and I'm always excited to jump on calls like this because I get to do something that I love to do. My wife always tells me, she gets mad at me. She's like, all you do is talk to your fucking friends all day. and she's not wrong.
What
right?
a terrible thing to do.
She's 100% correct. But I'm lucky that I found something that I can do that I'm passionate about. I step into this office or I jump on a call, it's not work for me. I get to sit there and talk shop with Chance or Dave, or I get to talk with one of the top trainers in the world and I get to pick their brain. I get to learn, but it's work for me because we're actually using it for our company, right? So things like that where you tie your motivation into your morale, I think is huge. And from a leadership perspective, being able to do that with the people that are below you, and then also trying to instill that or try to push it up to the people that are above you, hopefully, is another big thing. So making sure that information's going both ways, and communication. I mean, if I were to boil leadership down into one word, it'd probably be communication. And so that's just my thoughts from my last experiences and kind of with everything that I'm doing now. But I mean, if you can keep people motivated, then I think you keep their morale up. So that's just my 2 cents.
That's a great point, especially from looking at your the junior guys. A lot of it is motivation, right? A lot of that morale is just wanting to be there. So that makes perfect sense. Whitney?
Yeah. I was going to say,
Hold on a minute. Hold on.
What?
Yeah, Whitney's got seconds on this one. I'm going to cut you off before
All
you
right,
Jody's
sorry,
the guy that-
I got thirds.
thirds.
Yeah,
I'll hop
Jody,
in
you're the
after
guy
Jody.
that
Wait,
like
okay.
screws
Just
up the
help there.
count. Like 1, 2, 7. God damn it,
Yeah.
Jody.
Yeah,
No, it's not me at all, actually.
Okay, so I took notes this time so I can tag my brain. 2 things I think that are really kind of interesting about morale is that morale is a human condition, and the military is very good at instilling that you're either a soldier or a human, that you cannot be both, which has always been one of my largest frustrations. So that being said, I think morale has a very interesting spectrum. And what I mean by that is that when morale starts at the beginning of your career, there's a bit of a duration in between, and then it's what it looks like at the end. And, there's ebbs and flows in between, cool courses and good goes and deployments and stuff like that. But what does the, that morale trend look like? And speaking from my own personal observations, I started in my employment in CSOR working in recruiting. And you'll people in your entire life, they will give you everything they have and more, like almost to the point where they will degrade the potential for the rest of their career by hiding injuries so that they can make it into the organization, which is, but understandable and justifiable in the goal that they're trying to reach. That being said, my last 5 years in the military, I spent working as a section commander in a transition unit. And the way that morale looks like in that organization from individuals is the complete opposite. And the trend I've seen in all of them is, yes, there are individuals, but the majority of it comes down to leadership. So individuals that were coming into, let's say, SAW, you're going to get 1 or 2. They're both super motivated because they don't want to be where they are, but some are going to have really high morale because they had a chain of command that supported them, that facilitated that. And then there's ones that are just angry and mad because they had to, maybe a little bit harder at the system because they didn't have a supportive chain of command. And the flip side goes to those that are getting out, the majority with non-visible injuries. But morale ties right into that because as Ashley was talking there before, what triggered in my brain was there's a new term that's called institutional betrayal syndrome. It's not an official diagnosis. It's just it's conceptual theory right now. And basically what it says is that the institution can be a perpetrator of what we understand as moral injuries, and with flexibility in between, and how that affects those that are dependent on the system. And anybody that served in the military knows you're dependent on the system to an extent, and breaking away from it is completely separate. But how morale affects in there. And then if I was to take it one step farther and go from really low morale sometimes at the end to recruiting, morale speaks so much larger than beyond the uniform, because if you have individuals in the military frustrated, angry, hurt, betrayed, and let's not even get into veteran support on the other end. But if that's the way they're leaving, that's the worst recruiting campaign you could possibly have. And what you want, people that are like, yeah, you know what? This sucked, that happened, I knew what I was getting into, but I had great leadership and I've got the best buddies from it. You know what? Despite it went bad for me, you should totally join up. I'll walk you down. So like that's where you can see like a great full circle of morale. But I think that ties into what we're saying as well, is that there is something that is, and I don't like this word, especially in mental health, but there's something epically and systemically broken within the military culture for leadership that has taken our morale and placed it in a place that, I don't know where it's going to go from here. I loved my service. I did 20 years, but I'm very glad I don't wear the uniform in the institution as it exists today.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said about the sanctuary trauma and that side of the house for sure. And it is always a challenge when your leadership is not on board, right? It's so hard sometimes. But that's why leadership is so important, because it does affect the morale instantaneously. And I've gone from my personal experience going from one really bad leader to a really good leader in terms of warrant officers, and it was night and day. I went from being a really angry, bitter corporal that had no desire to being a soldier at any point in time to being a switched on soldier looking to lead in one warrant officer. And it's amazing how quickly that can change, because you're heard, right? I actually was pulled this is a really horrible story, but I had a sergeant pull me into his office and tell me he wanted me to write down all of the issues that I had with the military and why I was such an asshole to everyone. Write them all down, and then him and I will discuss it. And I was like, all right, if you want it, here it comes. So I sat there and wrote it all out, all the little gripes and all the bullshit as like a junior corporal would have, right? The army sucks and people are me and right? And instead of using that as like a learning opportunity and being like, okay, look, we can break these down. This is why this happens. This is why this happens. This is what we need to do here, blah, 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 blah. He pulled me into his office and turned that into a 25-minute jacking. And just sat there and was like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. When I was in, this was fucking bull. Like, da-da-da-da-da. Just ripped me a new one, top to bottom. And I was like, sweet. Thanks. This makes me want to stay all the more. Switch to that new warrant. And I'm like, I want to go on my PLQ. I want to be mass corporal. I want to be teaching. And then I went to the school and I started teaching. And Ash, you saw my morale there, right? I wasn't an angry, bitter corporal at that point. And yeah, right? Did okay. But that's the point, right? Like, how quickly that leadership can just shift things immediately. Anybody else want to jump on this?
Yeah, I think Jody's up.
Oh, yeah, Jody's up. Sorry.
No, I'll hop in.
I'm up.
Jody, Dave, then Damien, you want in on this after Dave? Ash will round us out. Groovy.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I just working with my guys, as the original question was, I thought, one of the ways to keep an eye on morale is just make sure everyone has something to do, a usefulness, and always have treats in your pocket, so if anybody's having a bad day, you can give them a candy bar, and if you're miserable, and your boots are frozen and it's 3 a.m. and this sucks, and now I got to And now I gotta supervise this guy. Here, have a chocolate bar, man. Like, and you know what? Go get us a coffee, and then I can have some peace and quiet until he gets back. Anyway, I always feel better with treats.
That's a great point. I love the fact just get some candy downrange. That'll help a lot. Dave, what about leadership in a leadership position?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to touch base on the whole morale issue, and there's been a lot of coming kind of rapid fire recent reasons. Just to read something from the Globe and Mail not too long ago. It's about the change in the dress regs, but at the end, like we're talking about dress regs. Okay, it's gender neutral. Okay, cool. And then in a statement, it said Karen Young, so General Karen Young, said consultations with 9,000 service
Bring
members
her in.
identified 4 main areas of the military's existing culture that need attention. The singular focus on successful missions, what it means to be a warrior, and the armed forces principles of leadership and teamwork. And I'm reading like, yeah, of course, that's it. Like, but the whole article didn't focus on any of that. That was the end of the article. I'm like, but that's the article. That's it right there. And that's what we're talking about. We're kind of playing on changing the dress regs. Great, but how's that morale? Like overall,
It's not meant to improve morale.
It's not exactly. It's not meant to improve morale.
No, this is the thing. Like this is the problem
for everybody else.
We're
right?
watching a we're watching psyops being played out on our own forces by its chain of command, right? Sorry, that's what I think. Look, man,
well, it
with everything that's going on, right? You know, and they're talking about this, and you know, and Trudeau's saying, oh well, we don't want to get out any diplomats, and then the general saying, oh, we can't compete up north.
But you, right?
And you know,
it's written down. These are the things that the troops, 9,000 troops, are saying, like, hey, warrior culture, and that was to go to an example of when I was a senior NCO at my unit, right? Like, we'd made a company, right? So when you're a senior NCO, you kind of like we were trusted. Me and my buddy, we got to run just our own set. We lobbied the leadership to, okay, look, we want to take the really keen guy, and we want to do just extra training days, and we grabbed those guys. We did a selection for them. The guys I wanted to get in, because that's the thing that we were missing. Like, well, what we weren't able to go on mission. We're trying happening. Like, how do we improve morale through something that we can do as senior NCOs? And that's what we came up with. So like exercise, or like on a Tuesday night, whenever we would do extra training, and that put morale through the roof for not only us but for the other guys too. And we lobbied leadership for extra, so we would say like, hey, guys, wear this different patch, and it's only when they go on the field. And so we kept it within parameters. And like, let me tell you, like the guys that me and my buddy were out now, been out for a while. Those guys are all senior NCOs. They're all majors, all colonels. Like and that was like one of the best experiences we had. And we didn't do much, right? We didn't like have this incredible package. We did a few little changes. We did some extra training. They went on to be leaders, and then they took before, because we did extra, like something simple as that. We created like a little CrossFit box with some kettlebells, and in like the uniform, the chain of command approved it. This different little patch, and then everybody else in the unit started saying, "Hey, I want to be on that team." So that alone was kind of something that typically, because that idea of like being different was verboten, right? It's like everybody's the same, but it's like, but this is something because everybody wants that little. My guys, presumably, I'm guessing, go want to prove, can there's a selection? Cool, I want to do it. And so, really creating that within a reserve unit really bolstered the morale of the guys over there, and we can see it. Like they're all senior leaders now, and I don't think it's a coincidence. So that's how I a team of other senior NCOs to create a little atmosphere of competition and pride in something that was a little bit harder than just the status quo. And that's I feel is just something that's lacking to kind of maintain that status quo, not rock the boat. And I'm just I'm just talking from the guys I'm speaking with now. It's just the status quo is just killing everybody. Not literally, obviously, but it's it's crushing morale. And if you have no morale, like we're saying here, like how do you have effective fighting force? This isn't HRDC. This isn't like IRCC. Like, you know, I was working at the federal government level up until a few months ago. Like, it sucks. We don't fight wars, but as a fighting force, I don't know how we get past this, you know, moment in time. Have strong leadership saying like, no, we're going to focus on warrior culture. Like, where's the focus on all this other shit? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, create whatever you want. But from now on, we're focusing on warrior culture. And what does that mean? Like, well, thousands of years of what warrior culture, and how do we define as Canadians? Like, I think that's the most important thing that's just not addressed.
Chance, you're on mute.
Of course, while I was eating, I muted myself and then didn't change it. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Ash. Dave, you're absolutely correct. 100%. The warrior culture is something that we are definitely lacking here in Canada. And unfortunately, a lot of other countries, when you look at some of the allies, they have histories, as Jody was saying earlier, right? You look at the Maori, right? And they have the Haka and like the New Zealanders, I should say, and they have like the Maori culture. They utilize that regularly, right? Even in the U.S., they don't have the length of history as, say, the British, but they utilize Native American names for their helicopters, right? We all loved having the Kiowas fly around us. They were awesome. But Kiowas, an Aboriginal tribe from down the U.S., right? Like that, just an added little piece to maintain their history, their touchstones to history is very important. So
absolutely. I mean, like even studying like feudal Japan, like when I'm doing my tattoos, I'm like, you could spend, 100 years studying all the different wars and all the different clans and how they were united, and how one guy's like, I'm crazy enough to train all the peasants and they're going to be my warriors and they all volunteer and we're going to just unite everybody. It's going to be bloody fucking mess. But, over the couple of years that you got Japan, it's like, but it was, literally 1,000 years of war.
It's awesome.
It's so cool. It's so fucking cool.
This actually, that you just, sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but there was this point I made. I was doing jiu-jitsu earlier today, and I was chatting with a guy specifically about that. Was that he was saying that we were talking about the poppies and whether or not they were glorifying war and so on and so forth, and I was like, they're not, so. But they're not. He was agreeing with me that they weren't, but he was bringing it up as another point. Anyway, the statement I made was, the problem is that there is things to glorify about war, honor and valor and courage and selflessness, and there's all these things that happen a lot more and are highlighted by war. But anybody that's been there knows that that's like 1% of war. Right, most of the time is literally sitting around going, "What in the actual fuck is the holdup?" That's most of it, but the rest of it is horrible. It's trauma. It's bad stuff. But when you look back at history, like the Japanese, you go, "Man, 1,000 years of war. Like, man, that's gonna instill a warrior culture." But that's 1,000 years of war, like.
But well documented war too.
Yes,
that's the other thing, right?
Yeah,
it's well documented, so you could trace it down, and you could even see individual battles and tapestries and art, and like it's not really written down in the sense where you're going to read about what every general's going to do, but like they do have like followings and whatnot, right? And paintings and stuff, how they depicted the war, and then the actual like battlefield on giant tapestries. I'm like, this is where this warrior came in with their horse, their cavalry. And then they had their arrowmen over on this range, and that's how they were able to sack this village and lay siege to them for 6 months, 7 months, a year, 2 years. Some of these fortresses were designed to withstand a siege for 5 to 6 years. That's like, you didn't design these like the Emperor's Palace. I'm like, that can withstand like a 5-year siege. Like, that's how much stores inside. So like they can just sit out and be like, we'll just wait you out, but you don't pre-think that, like thinking like, hey, we might be here a minute, without being like, yeah, we this is what we do. right? And it's still standing. You can go there and visit it. It's beautiful, but you're like, yeah, you can see how like this thing's going to stand this test of time. It's got a moat. It's tall. At the time, the technology wouldn't penetrate any of the walls, so you just sit them out. I mean, like they're going to run out of food before they're going to get into the walls. So, you know,
It's actually, it's kind of interesting. I would love to do what are those called? Like a tour.
Battlefield tour.
Yeah, not just a tour, but like a straight up toot, and have generals and commanders being like, okay, so we had these guys here, and blah blah blah, and this is what we did, and blah, blah, what would you guys do? How would you look at the ground? How would you do? And the battlefield tour would be cool, but I don't think you'd get the military, the tactical side to it, or the strategical side to it, which I think would be neat. I know Jocko's doing stuff like that in Gettysburg, but that's besides the point. Ash, any final points or on that particular topic? Leadership?
But yes. So we're talking about individual morale and institutional morale. I think the individual morale, especially within the context of like the Canadian Armed Forces, which is where our experiences come from, can only take you so far. If you don't have the support of the leadership, okay, if you don't have the support of the higher echelon, you're going to start running the difficulties, and that's going to then start to affect your morale. That's what I believe, anyways. And you can see it. It's rampant right now within the battalions, within different organizations. They're trying to put on their best face. They're trying to put their best foot forward. But it's definitely affecting them for sure. Now, just from my leadership perspective, when it comes to morale, the way that I maintained or increased morale when I was serving was I set the example. So through my consistency and my accountability, I led by example. That golden rule of leadership that we always talk about. And by ensuring that my guys were as trained as best as possible, ensuring that they were as fit as possible, trying to take over and control all the things that are in our purview before going out the door and actually doing the job. And through creating that confidence in their ability, their confidence in their weapon systems, confidence in their kit, by going through those steps, and that would then start to increase their morale. Also, increasing their discipline and their self-discipline, giving them the why we're doing this, why we do this way, what it will actually achieve, making them understand and giving them exposure to the bigger picture. Because a lot of times when people become, when their morale is being affected, it's also because they don't have the experience or the exposure to what may be going on. And a lot of these things are movies that we've seen and we've been in time and time again. So as the ones having the experience from that leadership position, we can draw context to what's actually going on, and we can give them the why, and we can give them our perspective as professionally as possible. So by doing all those things and tightening up and bringing together that cohesion, that's how I would maintain and or increase morale. And I didn't run into, we want to do this or we'd like to do that. I think that my guys just knew that I was 100% invested in their well-being. I always put them before myself. I always did what you're supposed to do as a leader. And because I displayed that every day, day in, day out, first person to work, last person to leave, 100% commitment, they can see that. Like, they're not stupid, regardless of how new they are, they see this. And when you're doing this on a consistent basis, time and time and time again, right, it brings everyone together. It creates that cohesion, which by default, when the confidence goes up and the discipline goes up, the morale goes up.
Absolutely. And just, I noticed even my short time in, like when we were all working together and training together, it wasn't just that's work, you're done, I'll see you tomorrow kind of thing. It's like, no, burgers, beers, we're going to fire it up and everybody get together, like work's done, but we're going to still hang out and like, work as a team on our socials, as that's pretty important. It's not just like, this is not a 9 to 5 job, especially if you're in the combat arms, right? So I mean, like, it's 24/7. So I mean, like, you got to hang out with who you train with too, because you get a little bit more personal with them, and you know exactly what's up, and you can see the nuances when people are having that rough day, or they're off or something, or they're having a bad time with their girlfriend or some shit. And you can just be like, "Yo, bud, what's up?" You don't have to bring it in front of the crew, but it just sorts it out like that. And when you're just coming in 9 to 5, it's just like, oh, that's fucking so and so. He's just being a dick, and that's just normally him. But you just don't know what's going on the other half. So when troops connect on like the social side of it too, and it's not just training, that's where I found like the cohesive, and that's where the brotherhood really starts kicking in. So.
There's a really good resource too, and to go to Ash's point there about the why. I don't know if you guys follow or know of a guy named Simon Sinek. He's a phenomenal dude, a phenomenal speaker. Actually, I just reached out to him to present at our conference next year. But he has a book, Start with Why. And if you haven't read that book, I would definitely put that on the top of your list. And he talks about having 3 circles. You have the why in the center, then the how, then the what. And for a leader, we talking about leadership. I mean, it's critically important that you have that squared away on your own end. But that's a tool that you can give to everybody, and you can have everybody go through that process of understanding what is your why. Those are like your personal, your family goals. The how is like, what is my professional development? How am I going to get those and accomplish those? And then the what is kind of like the broad spectrum. Like, what's your career? What is, are you trying to start a business? Are you trying to do X, Y, or Z? So, and he does a lot of talks. He's done a lot of consulting with a lot of tier 1 groups in the States and in Canada and other places like that. But I think that's a phenomenal resource in this context when we talk about the why behind why we do things. So I just wanted to bring that up because Ash made a good point there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Also,
train, if that's okay. So I liked when Ashley said there about the why. What I think was really interesting about that is that the concept of the why and how we are structured in the military and how right down to our performance and our battle procedure and stuff, the why is not built into that outside of who is giving. And our military is no longer structured like that. So if you think about like where that is coming from back in the day, everybody like stretched out in an extended line and you just went that way. And it could be like the dude who like pulls potatoes and like the other guy who like feeds some dude's mules, right? Like they didn't need to think. We didn't want them to think. We just needed them to do one job. But if you take a look at the military today, even like right down into the combat arms, the majority of our NCMs out-educate our officer corps. It is what it is, right? We do not have an NCM corps in the Canadian Forces that is uneducated these days. So you're coming into an organization where you have soldiers that think, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. However, thinking is something we do need our soldiers to do because our battle space has changed, right? We don't come from this like load your musket, go this way. Our battle space is like, I want to say 3D, but that's a friggin' joke, right? It's like 60, 70. And depending on where you are in the leadership, like there's so many hats, you don't even know what you're doing. And so having our soldiers have the ability to understand what the intent is, how we're getting there, and the why kind of allows us as leaders within reason to delegate some of that responsibility. That's double fold. My morale is going to be better if I'm not overwhelmed with things, and their morale is going to be better because your ability to perform and your ability to succeed, especially when you're doing it somewhat on your own, leads to competence, and competence increases morale. So that there's this lovely cycle that can occur there. But I think kind of leans back to something I was saying before about humans versus soldiers, and the military doesn't think you can be both. You have soldiers that are going to be coming into the to the ranks that, you know, they may be corporals here, but they were crushing whatever it was that they were doing on the civilian side. There are going to be, and you know, like Chance, I'm sure you've seen it, there are going to be guys that are not trained how to use heavy equipment, but like their whole family has been running combat since they were 6. So there's skill sets that you can lean into in your soldiers, that shows an interest, makes your job easier, makes them feel competent. So there's other ways that I think as well that morale doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, patches or flashy things that we can touch. They can have a tactical application to them as well. And I know this is probably going to start a whole different conversation, and I just want to throw it in there because I'm on the platform. But I think it's also very important to remember that intrinsically, when we look at the military morale from the CAF, we have to remember that the dynamic that supports the majority of it is our families at home. So like that's a whole different podcast in itself, but everybody here who served knows how much the family plays. And you know, the military, if we can spend a little more time in that category as well, it's just the ability to have more control and to make our lives a little bit easier.
That's a that's a very accurate point. I love the fact that you actually brought that up, because I actually had a recruit. We made him write a paper. I can't remember why, but it was something on the rank structure, and he had wrote this whole, like, I think it was like a page, 2 pages of report. And at one point in the line, this is what I remember about it, was officers are here due to the fact that they have a higher educational level and have an ability to maintain some sort of level of intelligence, right? It just basically was like the non-commissioned are stupid, basically is what he was saying, right? And I was like, you're handing this to a master corporal, right? And I'm like, are you serious? And he's like, well, no, I just mean that we have a higher level of education. And I was like, that dude has a university degree. He's a sergeant. What? Right? And it's there, as you said, there's this mentality that officers have a higher level of intelligence or a higher level of schooling that makes them more capable of a particular job. When really, I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure the warrant ran more of the troop than the lieutenant ever did. Right? And so, but I get the leadership difference, like why there's an officer corps, but I think it needs to be adjusted to change things. But this actually leads into the next point, because what we've been, as you guys have been saying, we've been kind of tiptoeing around is how to build morale. And that's really the core of this whole conversation that I wanted to have was, you know, it starts at a personal level. You have to have a personal interest in your own morale. That's all it is. And whatever happens, it might suck, but you can still smile through it and you can laugh about it later. And that's where all of our dark humor comes from, right? Because you see some fucked up shit and you just sit there like, okay, sure, this is happening. All right. But in my view, the biggest thing that affected my morale was the core. That's all. Like, as the engineers, we had the history of, we've been around since 1900. We don't have any battle honors because we've been in every single fucking battle. It's that touchstone to history that builds from a unit perspective. So we've talked about the personal perspective and we've talked about the direct leadership, but how do we build it as a community now? How do we fix the problem in the CF right now? Go. No. Who wants to jump on that first?
I don't think I get paid enough now to give them the answers. But the only reason why I say that is they never listened before. They're not going to listen now.
Yeah, true. But I would like to hear your opinion. How about for me? For my own interest.
I think, okay, I'll start off. I think we need to, it's very similar to what you see going on in society right now, where everything is being canceled, everything is being erased, and everything is being forgotten about. We need to realize that people and, you know, people in civilization, stuff like that, they're not perfect. And that's okay. Like, but if we forget the past and if we erase the past, we're going to end up making the same mistakes in the future because we'll have nothing to reference it against. And I think that's obviously a broader thing that people have heard before in the past, but I believe it also applies to the military. You know, all the small things, the small nuances that made, I'll just use it from the combat arms perspective, that, you know, referred to and spoke to the profession of arms. There are, I can tell you for a fact that there are COs right now that are telling their people that they can't use certain terminology and verbiage like the word warrior because it's found to be too offensive and aggressive. Now, if you're in a military and these are the things that are affecting you, you are in the wrong profession. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any rules and people don't have individual rights and such, because they do. But what I am saying is that you can't tiptoe around these things. Like people have to have the ability to light people up when they need to, when it's required, because there is a time and a place. It's not all the time. It's not leadership, it's leadership. But there are requirements that differentiate the profession of arms and the military from the civilian population, from other types of careers. And when you are restraining those individuals from maintaining that discipline, or you are taking away their ability to discipline and hold people accountable for having their head up their ass and not doing their job properly, and you're not enforcing the rules and you're not holding them accountable on a consistent basis, you're creating something that's not, you're not going to be able to come back from. So, you know, this is happening day in and day out. And if they continued, if they were, and they paid attention to the customs and traditions of the past, and they allowed those small things to continue to happen, then maybe they would have, you know, they would be able to maintain, that morale, and help their cause and their case move forward, and still maintain some kind of a cohesive unit. But it's almost like every time you turn around, you know, there's outside influences like the government of Canada in various different levels and organizations that are directly impacting and affecting the effectiveness of the military.
Yeah,
and obviously, and they're in charge, right? They're the elected leaders. They're the boss. But the difference is that in the military, you have people that are subject matter experts, and they're subject matter experts in soldiering, in the profession of arms, and they're experts because they're able to advise commanders. They're able to advise political leaders. But when those leaders and those people that are making the decisions, that should be making those effective decisions based on being properly briefed by experts, and their ears are closed, you're not going to gain any traction, and you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. That's not so much of a point. It's more of a little rant, but it's just, it's just frustrating to see. Like I'm trying to put it into, I'm trying to put more context to it and put it in more words, but you know, I'm getting a little worked up because you see what this is doing from the outside looking in, and then knowing from the inside looking out.
Yeah.
And most of the Canadian people, they won't understand because they don't have the exposure or the experience to the institution. And a lot of that has been from, you know, I mean, hell, you know, we're only in the limelight when it comes to wars, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, all the bad things that had to happen and all the people that had to die, you know, while we were at war in Afghanistan, that unfortunately did good things for us during the time, you know, kind of revitalized us and brought us back, you know, and made us somewhat more effective by the support that we were given from the government of Canada. But that only carried us so far, right?
Yeah.
And now we're kind of going back to the same place we were before, and that's not a good place to be at.
Well, this goes back to what Whitney was saying earlier, was the fact that it behooves the government to have a large force of veterans who had great experiences right? Like if they come out of the military and they're solid workers and start new businesses and doing their stuff and like, I'm a little messed up. Cool, I'm gonna go get help. And they enter the society going, oh man, I had a great time in the military. Yeah, I did 10 years. I did 15 years. Oh yeah, no, it was awesome. Yeah, absolutely, you should go and for sure. Right? That it behooves the government because for just a recruiting level, that's great to keep your military manned, but it increases the awareness of the population of the military because they understand now. And I mean, we used to joke about this all the time here in Edmonton was the fact that you go past the Yellowhead, south of the Yellowhead in Edmonton, most people don't even know there's a base there. And you're just like, it's a major city. There's almost 1 million people here, 3/4 of which don't know there's a base literally attached to the city. It's right there. But that's part of the problem, large scale, right? Damien, you had a point?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like all the veterans I tattoo, I mean, like they'll like we don't discuss horror stories or anything while we're in session, but we talk about the good times, the bad times, whatever. And every single soldier that I've tattooed, like I said, like I've tattooed 3 guys this week, so I mean, like, every single one of them would in a second join the military. Their number one biggest gripe out of anything was they didn't have strong role models at the time they were in for whatever reason, just for like you're in a unit, it gets reorganized 3 times in a year or something, you're not with the same people, and then you're gonna it's just a constant like fuckery of like change places, musical chairs of people coming in and out too, right? So but their number one thing was like I loved every second of it, but there are a few things that would have made my life better, obviously, and they're all the same things. But they sit here and they talk about the stories, and like that's just like talking with you guys. It's like, it feels normal because we are such a small community. But yeah, like it I forget where I was going with that, but I mean, like, yeah, it's not lost on veterans. I mean, like, I think there's a lot of guys who are like more quiet about it, but I mean, like, in your heart, like, once a soldier, always a soldier is like every single one I've tattooed, like that's where their heart is, no matter what they're doing now in civilian life, so
You and I had a great chat for 6 hours when you were doing my arm. I mean, and talking shit, talking stories, swapping all that stuff is it's great. And I remember when this whole Russia thing started in the last little while, I don't know how many people were texting me like, I guess we're getting the band back together, eh? I was like, I guess so. This is what's happening. Whitney, Adam, you want to add anything onto how to fix the largest issue we
Such a loaded question.
It is.
The only unless somebody is feeling frisky and they want to get into politics and then hopefully pick the right side and then get appointed as Minister of National Defense, I don't think we're fixing shit. That's just the long and short of it. And even then, even if you got put in that position, chances are slim, right? So, I mean, we're not going to be doing it from the inside. At least nobody here talking, anyways. And so I think that's like when you said, that's a loaded question. I honestly don't think we could talk for the next 20 hours and we're still going to be in the same starting point. But that being said, I think one thing that we haven't talked about is morale of folks that are transitioning out or have left the forces and the importance of that. Because that is something that every single person here can affect and do affect, right? With the things that we're doing. And if there's one thing that I'm most proud of with the stuff that we're doing, it's just like everyone here. I mean, we run our I Got Your Six campaign, and everything that we do goes back and gives back to our brothers and sisters that served, whether that's military or law enforcement or first responders. And that's something that I'm super proud of. And so for me, when I go back to that concept of what's my motivation that feeds into my personal morale, it's what can I do? How can I take the knowledge and the experience that I've gained while I served, and how can I now use that to assist everybody else? And how can I use that to bolster what I'm capable of doing for the betterment of everybody who's served and now is trying to make something of themselves. There's a lot of folks that everybody here on this call, myself included, knows that are having a hard time. post service that they don't know what to do with themselves. They don't know if they want to start a business or get a job, or they've tried and failed multiple things multiple times. Being able to help that one person, not just trying to do something grandiose and help every single person, because you can't do that, but finding that one person that you can mentor, that you can assist, that you can help, that person that was in your unit that gives you a call and says, hey man, what's going on? You're like, hey dude, you tell me what's happening. Like, what's going on? How's your family? How's work going? Oh, you're not working. Well, what are you wanting to do? Is there anything I can do to help you with that? And maybe it's not us that can do it, but I guarantee you that there's I'm giving a talk later this month at a conference talking about the value of networking and collaboration. And I think that's something that we severely underutilize with what we've gained in our time. Think about all the people that you guys have worked with individually throughout your careers in the forces. And all of those people have moved on to do 1,001 different things. And so I guarantee somebody that can assist that person who needs that help. And so it's maintaining those relationships while you're in, and then utilizing those and nurturing those after you leave. So I don't know if Chance, if we have time to even jump into the conversation of post service, but that's just something I wanted to bring up, because I think that's something that everybody here is doing very, very well, and I wanted to give a shout out to everybody for that.
That's absolutely fantastic, and it was my next point. So we're good to go. Was institutional morale? Actually, before we move on, I wanted to get Sasha's opinion on this because he was in and out a bit while we were talking about it. You good? You good to go, Sash? Can you hear me? Groovy.
Yeah, you're,
you're on mute. There we go. So the point that we were talking about was leadership from your own personal view, leadership building morale. So from your last position of leadership, how did you build morale in your team? Oh, he's still muted. Hold on.
Step one, I suppose, right? So, you guys can hear me?
You're good. Yeah, we can hear you. Good go.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. I guess by example, so I would ensure or make sure that I'm doing everything that I can to the best. Because I can't ask. First of all, I would say team, but I wasn't in a leadership position in the sense of. However, I would argue that I was probably people were gravitating towards me more so than to management. So having said that, I didn't ask anyone to do that. I just did what I thought made sense, and I worked hard, and I tried to make sure I cared about my colleagues, the people next to me, and if they had any issues, I'd want to ensure that I could help if I could. If I help myself, I'd try to find a way that we could help them. Just to be in service even amongst my colleagues, I guess that would make morale pretty legit, I think. I don't know.
Well, that's a great point, is that at all levels there is leadership, right? Whether you are actually in a leadership position or not, right? You can be beside your brothers and be a leader in that team in just your own personal.
Yeah, because look, I mean, if you're talking, I mean, a leader doesn't have to be in any organization, right? We're talking about organizations. There's work for anything in our leaders, right? So what are they doing that are
Mm-hmm.
So like, say for example, Terry Fox is a leader. He was like, what, 19, 20 years old. What did he do? How did he galvanize people? Right? So these are things that I've been kind of trying to observe over the last few months or even a year or two. What makes sense from a leadership perspective. I don't think management or anything has any relevance to it. Anybody can be a leader as long as you're employing or embodying and doing the things that require one to be such.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And that actually leads into what Adam was just saying, was that post-service, once you are out in the realm of the world that is fucking chaos, how do we maintain morale? How do you maintain personal morale once you're out? How do you maintain the morale of the people around you? How do you work that out? Let's start with Dave. I don't know. Can you hear me, Dave?
I was just shooting in text to my buddy there.
All good.
Sorry, what was that last bit?
I was just asking about how do we maintain morale post service? How do we keep going
Great point.
after you're out? Now, so you're not part of the team, not part of the organization. How do you keep yourselves and the people around you going?
Well, as the fitness guy, it's fitness and foremost. I think you guys are all expecting that one, and I fundamentally believe in it.
Yep.
But the reason why is because the mind follows the body, and what typically happens, and even happened to me, even though I finished my career, so to speak, here in Montreal. I already had a job. I was working. I had my community. I had my wife. I had my kids. For all intents and purposes, I was good. Like there wasn't like a finality where it's like, okay, well, like here's your stuff in the world and figure it out now, buddy. It's like, no, I already had that. But what I failed to recognize was you mentioned networking. My network sucked. I didn't do anything to cultivate. Pushed away all my military friends, so to speak, to become Civvy Dave. Started kind of spiraling, and the only thing that brought me back was fitness. So if you can have that anchor as you're leaving, that base of fitness, because what I see with the work with is that the main that has left their lives as they transitioned out was that regimented fit PT plan. That was, okay, if you're going to do anything, accomplish anything during the day, you did your run or you did your push-ups, that was done. Like that's like making your bed. That is part of being a disciplined human being. But for some, that's pulled away, and a lot of it is you're negatively conditioned to, well, I suck at PT, I hate running, I'm never running again, and everything is surrounded, and all that, those negative emotions all come like to the forefront. Fuck that, I'm not doing PT anymore. Nobody's telling me to do that anymore. But ultimately, what you're doing is you just cutting off your nose to spite your face. You can find all kinds of different things that you need to do, and that's where that's the space that I occupy. Because if it wasn't for getting myself fit again and getting fitter than I've ever been, I definitely on this call right now, I'd be wallowing in my bed probably because my back hurt, my knee hurt, probably divorced, probably not even in my house right now, getting bad. And so that's why I heavily on fitness as a means to allow yourself to now go into the deeper aspects of your personality, of your relationships, because tapped into it, look good, feel good, do good. Now the school I worked at before I left a few years ago, that was the mind. It was an all boys school. Their motto was men for others, but also look good. It was their own suit and tie, and it had to look sharp. It couldn't be dirty. Like they had a dress code that was based on that mantra. Look good, and that's what I've taken moving forward. Is that you look a little bit better in the mirror, chances are you're going to feel a little bit better. You might put on a nicer shirt. You're did in the military, like we made sure our kit looked good. Like, I judged a soldier by the way they wore their berets and their uniforms. Like if they're sloppy, like I go over and be like, hey, kid, come here. Like what's going on here? No. And same for me, like stuff all the time. That same expression of who you are. And you can't, and you need, that's probably the starting point. And that has improved morale for myself and everybody else that I've been able to work with. And I think that's your starting point, at least when you're transitioning, is dial down and get your.
That's a great point. I mean, your fitness, I think a lot of us take for granted when you're in, and then you get out and you're like, fuck that, right? Who's doing PT? I'm not doing PT. Fuck that noise. I could eat chips. I'm not doing that shit.
On a quick note, to Dave and I've talked about this quite a bit. Like with me just recently, getting back in, starting November, I built a gym out in my garage. And I've lost 30 pounds in the last, since whenever November was. TRT helped, started that. That's a fucking game changer, by the way, boys. If you have the opportunity, definitely do it. Okay. So the thing with that is, though, that physical fitness component, we're actually going to be doing a round table at the end of this month on it's called Human Performance: Bridging Physical Fitness with Mental Wellness. but essentially talking about how utilizing that physical fitness component actually changes the game in here, right? And I couldn't agree with Dave more. And if you haven't read his book, you should definitely get it. Nimble Warrior, phenomenal. There you go, Dave.
Thanks,
There's your
buddy.
plug.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for the plug.
And
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
yeah, no, I couldn't agree with him more. I think it's phenomenal. The physical fitness component is, I lost that, and I was super depressed and just I hated myself. And just getting back into the gym even, and I still don't run. I wasn't joking. It's funny. I was laughing when like I don't even touch a treadmill. I don't even walk, dude. Like put me on a rower. I won't do anything. It was funny when Ash jumped on though. I was sitting there and I was just like, and all I thought it was freaking David Goggins there for a second. He's like, I'm gonna run 100 miles. I'm like, okay, great, thanks, Dave. But talking about people like that, this is the last thing because I don't know if I'm gonna be able to jump off here right away, but finding people that motivate and inspire you, I think, is another big thing. And there's a lot of Dave Goggins is one example of just a fucking hard charging dude. But another one, and I wanted to bring this up because I just watched it the other day and I thought it was really cool. Has anybody here seen 14 Peaks?
Oh yeah.
Has anyone
Yeah.
watched that with Nirmal Purja, the Gurkha?
And once you guys are done here, I want to jump in.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so but like something like that, just it's stuff that keeps you motivated. Always seeking those people that are doing bigger and better things, and just striving to be that 1% better every day. I think that 1% better, right? Just try to do something 1% better each and every day. Is phenomenal. So, and this is a part of that, having conversations with like-minded peers, and just being able to just brain dump thoughts and have conversations about things you're passionate about is also a big part of that. So if I don't say anything else for the rest of this time, I just want to say I appreciate every single one of you and for what you do, and I'm looking forward to doing more stuff like this in the future. So thank you.
Hey, my pleasure having you on here, and you're absolutely right. This is why I have the conversations, is because this is what it's all about. Just like chatting. Sash, man.
Yeah, no, I just had to pull over. I just got the ferry and I just pulled over. I thought maybe this is a good time for me to jump in, I suppose.
Yeah, man. Yep. So we're talking post-service. How do you keep morale up post-service?
Well, I'll just jump off of what Adam was talking about, like in terms of like the physical fitness and like pushing yourself and then finding new sort of strategies to manage mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a runner either. I just started about 1.5 years ago, but I think through like a lot of this running that I've been doing, it's been extremely challenging. And I think setting goals periodically throughout the year that are extremely challenging then force me to start thinking outside of the box on how to like figure out new coping mechanisms. So what I mean by that is a couple weeks ago, I was doing Goggins 4x4, and well, anyways, I found it a bit limiting because it was every 4 hours. I wanted to keep going. So anyway, nonetheless, it was I ended up running almost 100K in the 2 days. But the point is not that. The point is it was extremely hard. So when I was doing it, I wanted to quit at various different moments, or I was negotiating with myself various different things throughout the entire 48 hours. So what that is doing, at least from my experience, my recent experience, is that it's forcing me to develop new coping mechanisms to manage the stress that I'm dealing with. So what I've learned is that both your body can't tell the difference between physical and mental stress. So if I'm forcing my body to go through physical stress, I'm improving my mental capacity at the same time. And I can give real world examples of that, or real time examples, because really the last 2 years I've been employing this strategy quite significantly, and I'm handling things that would normally wreck me a lot better, right? And I'm able to manage those way easier and with more detachment when I'm dealing with things. So yeah, I think. Oh, and also the setting of the personal goals. Had I not done that 50 or the 2 days of the running, I wouldn't have realized that I can actually break the record to run across Canada. So had I not tested myself, then that wouldn't even have been a possibility. So
Yeah, you don't
that's
know what you
yourself.
don't know until you
Yeah.
know, and that's
Yeah, because initially I was saying, okay, I'll run across Canada, it takes 6-7 months, whatever, right? But after pushing myself, so I was like, well, fuck that, man. Like, why don't we just break a record while we're at it? And then if we're gonna do that, then why don't we just like galvanize as much people as possible and see how much money we can actually generate in the next 2 years? Like, so I already got like companies that are starting to really pay attention to what's actually happening over here, and it's pretty exciting to see that we can generate this kind of attention in a short period of time. And then the next 3 years, the type of attention you're talking 14 peaks. Well, I'll squash that story in next 2 years,
I'm liking it. I'm
right?
liking it. That's the attitude, man.
It
Because 14
sounds like someone's been callous in their mind.
because 14 peaks, it's exceptional that he did that. But did you see him on Joe Rogan recently? That guy's pretty impressive, and he's way more impressive than me because he's got way better training. His whole life's been training. He's a former tier 1 operator. Of course he's able to do that. When you get an average person who's not exceptional like that, and you transform that individual with the help of others over the span of 3 years, and then you crush a goal, well, that's more exceptional. And I'm able to do that with the help of all you people and all the other people that are helping me. So that's the story I'm going to tell in the next 2 years with the documentary that's kind of filming as we speak. So in 3 years' time, that shit's going to come out. We're going to have something talking about what we do and how we do things and how we're exceptional and not somebody else.
No, this is, you bring up a great point, is the fact that a lot of times what we look at is the paragon, right? We look for, we look around for the exceptional, and you go, oh man, that's awesome. I could never do that, right? But what we want is to start looking at people. That's why, that's why I do these, is the fact that we all have our own little piece, our own little story, our own little development, our own little mountain to climb, our own country to run across. We all have that that ability. We just have to find what that ability is, and once we figure that out, then we can deliver, right? Like
You're
Damien and I,
1,000% correct, man. Because like a year and a half ago, I had no awareness that I was even capable remotely to do what I'm already doing. And that's because of the help of everybody around me and the fact that they're pushing me and elevating me and giving me the support, right? Like I can't, I mean, shit, man. Like a year and a half ago, running 7,300 kilometers in 65 days. That's 112 kilometers per fucking day that I'm going to have to do that. So I'm starting right now. So that takes 3 years of training. I just hired a running coach. I'm taking a year off of work just to train full time.
Yeah.
So that's the commitment that I'm putting towards raising morale.
Yeah. I mean, Damien and I were talking on our podcast, was like art had always been his thing, right? It was always you were saying that was your freaking what, I just lost the word. Oh my goodness. That was how you got it all out, right? Damien, you with me here?
Oh, yeah. Still here.
Totally zoned out.
It's your passion.
Yeah, talking to him, he's like,
But
well, we were talking about art, like when we did the
yeah,
podcast.
that's it. Like art for me, and that's I do huge sessions every day. That's kind of what I'm known for. I'm known for doing warrior tattoos. That's not just because I tattoo veterans, but like they sit 6 hours under pain and letting me do my work. And because of my military experience, I'm like, it's not like a guy taking a break every 15 minutes and you're not getting your work. It's 6 hours of you're under the needle. It's pain. You're getting like, I'm a finisher. I get my work done because I know how much this hurts. But at the same time, that 6 hours is me totally focused. I'm dialed in. I'm zoned in on what I'm doing because one, it's there's a lot of variables here. It's not like just You know, I'm not dodging bullets, but I'm like, it's bloodborne pathogens. There are things that could fucking kill me if I'm not fully aware of what I'm doing, and vice versa. That could go for my client as well. And, you know, that doesn't work well. But I mean, like, the art and the focus for that 5 to 6 hours a day is, it's freeing for me. I can think about what I need to do, and while I'm tattooing half the time, I'm not even thinking about actually what I'm doing. It's already logged in. I'm just thinking about memories from back in the day, and sorting out my life, and, you know, how I gotta continue on with the next day. And um, yeah, like, art has been huge for me. And even the veterans I tattoo, the art they receive and how they're able to, like, that's how I give morale back to them. Like, Chance, you always look at your arm, you're like, I can't wait till the next one, you know. And when I hear that, or people are just like, I can't wait till the next one, everybody stops me, and like, the art you gave me makes me feel good for, you know, and that time that we got to sit and chit chat and shoot the shit, you know, is not anything those guys would have got anywhere else, because we just have that camaraderie from, you know, being in the military. So you can shoot the shit, and it's not going to be weird to me. Believe me, I've heard a lot of weird shit in my chair, you know. But guys with way more experience, and it's like, oh my god, like, you're exactly what I thought I wanted to be when I was in, you know. But I mean, like, you tell me of all the good goes and then the bad goes, and you hear that, and it's like, yeah, you know, it's like I said, both ways.
2020 hindsight too, right? You go, oh,
That's
that,
it.
that does not sound fun at all.
Yeah.
Whitney, you got oh, Adam, you got something to
Yeah,
say?
I gotta jump off, everyone. I
Rod.
appreciate you guys. I left a little note there for you in the chat. Damien, if we get a chance, brother, I don't got a lot of space left on the upper body, but I got a full leg for you if you want.
You just let me know.
We'll make that. We'll tee that up. But I appreciate you guys so much, and Chance, brother, awesome job as always. Thank you for putting this together, and
Thanks for being
looking
here,
forward to speaking with everybody soon. So stay safe, and we'll see you out there.
Raj, Timo.
Take care.
So Whitney, I was gonna come to you, and then Ash, you can finish it off, and then we can kill her here. But Whitney, how about you for post-service morale maintenance?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I feel like I wrote a couple of them down, but I think like what the singular kind of theme that's coming with everyone is that it is not an individual process, which is really kind of interesting, because the psychology behind that is that, you know, in the military from day one, we are no longer an individual, right? The only thing that individualizes us between, you know, us and the dude beside us, shoulder to shoulder, is our name tape, ultimately, and, you know, maybe a in between there. But yeah, we're not individuals. And then through the release process, we're removed from our organizations and replaced as individuals. And we need to make that transition on our own, which is ironically not very good. So just recently transitioning myself, and then working the last 5 years in specifically transitions for military members, the biggest thing I can push is support networks. And I could use myself as an example in the sense that, you know, I am a high performer and a perfectionist. So I had my release plan down to the T. Every benefit, every piece of paperwork, I had a public service job lined up, education, you name, like, I had it on paperwork. It was perfect. And it was an epic failure. I rolled out of the military into, you know, a wicked loss, and trying to navigate through all of that. And, you know, I liken it a little bit to AA in the sense, you know, the military is an addiction. The way, like, either way you put it, it's a hard one to cut. But the big one through that process is, you know, a sober buddy. And I think a sober buddy in the sense that somebody that is far enough along in the release process that they can guide you through to the other sense. And that was a game changer for me. So, you know, I kind of had my sober buddy in and my sober buddy out. And they were the ones that I went to when things were not great. So I think make sure that if you can at least just line up one dude that you can call in the middle of the night when stuff is crap. And even if they just tell you that, yeah, like, that's just crap, I'd be like, yeah, right? Like, you're sitting in a trench together and it sucks. I'd be like, yeah, man, I got SWAS like nobody's business right now. And they're like, yeah, man, I got SWAS too. I'm like, so wait, right? Like, so it's that camaraderie. So, like, you need it on the way out. So I think, like, the top one would be make sure you have your support networks. Don't make any major decisions, because They're not, you don't know who you are. You have no idea who you are. You don't know what this process is. You don't know what you look like as a civilian. And there's more paperwork to navigate like anybody's business. So in that, I would say grant yourself the kindness and the flexibility to move through that process, because it does take time. And, you know, I've seen everybody and everything. I've seen guys go off to be private contractors. I've seen guys to go off and like make bee farms, all paid for by the military, right? So like, I mean, whatever your jam is, like be flexible in thinking outside the box, that just because you were a clerk, you don't have to be an admin. Just because you know, you pewed all day. Like, I mean, you don't have to do that. You can be whatever you want. So I think, you know, that kind of blew all over the place there, but support networks, you know, they're just as important as they are out. And, you know, some people choose to pretend that they weren't in the military, and that's their jam, if that's what it is. But I think somewhere in the middle of the night, we'll have those moments where we could have a conversation with somebody, and knowing that, grab yourself a sober buddy and like, don't be sober. Obviously, grab the sober buddy and go do not be sober, whatever your jam is. That's kind of that's where I am.
You hit two great points there that I try to tell everybody, is that it's not, first off, it's not civvy life. I try to make this correction all the time. You are not re-entering civilian. You're re-entering civilian society, but you are never going to be a civvy. You're going to be a veteran, and you will be a veteran till the day you die.
You corrected me on that the day after I released. I remembered that. You're like, you're not a civvy, you're a veteran. And I was like, ooh.
And it is 100% true, though, because what we expect is what we had beforehand, right? You'd think, oh, it's going to be like when I got in when I was 20, and now I'm
16.
40. Right? Yeah, 16. There you go. Like, that's not going to happen. So it's a new life. It is a veteran life. It is no longer a civvy life. It is a veteran life. And I mean, the reserve guys are a little bit different on that one. But the second point you hit was grace, not slack. And I've been using this as my own personal philosophy for the last little while. Give yourself grace to fail and learn, but not enough slack to quit. So whatever it is, you want to try something, fail, learn, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you need to do, figure it out. Take the time and figure it out. If you, after a while, go, you know what? I just don't enjoy this. It's not that I'm bad at it. It's not that, you know, you take your ego out of it and just like, I just don't enjoy this anymore. Okay, move on. Try something else, right? But giving yourself the grace to just give it a shot. See what happens. You never know. You know, I went to my first jiu-jitsu class and I got tied in knots by a 16-year-old girl. That was it. And I was like, this is fucking awesome. Like, let's do this again. But that's what happened. And sometimes that's going to happen. Sometimes you got to get tied in knots by a 16-year-old girl. That's the way it is, for you to figure out that either this is fun or it's not. And you can move on. Ash, we're a little bit over time here, but what are your thoughts on post-service morale? And then we'll shut her down for the night.
I think your morale is going to be dictated by your experiences, the experiences you have once you leave. You know, my transition was, I'd say I'm, you know, kind of still in it in that respect, that, you know, we discussed during our podcast there, Chance, you know, I rolled right into a job. I retired on a Friday. I was working on a Monday, and I was in the US doing gigs on Wednesday. And then immediately after I summed that up, after a series of time, I pivoted right into school. Went right into post-secondary. Like, it was like a quick flash to bang. And then finished that up. And then now I'm here. So the one thing that I've figured out is, I think I'm back in, you know, when you're getting towards adulthood and you're kind of in the trial phase. I think I'm kind of back in the trial phase. I think I've come full circle in life, to the point where now I'm kind of, you know, of the phrase, you know, I'm not quite sure yet what I want to be when I grow up. And I think that's kind of where I'm at. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because my service, it benefits me in how it's developed my character and my, you know, how I am as a person. But it doesn't define me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the difference, is that I'll be able to apply everything that I am and everything that I have moving forward into whatever field that is and whatever that looks like. And I don't quite know 100% what that is right now. I've got some ideas and some areas of interest that I'm going to pursue through different portions, of the year, and kind of breaking that down into different types of goals. But I can tell you that whatever that looks like and whatever that is, it's going to be something that I want to do and not something that I have to do. And I think that's the difference of where I'm at right now in life, is that, when I figure it out, I'll pull the trigger, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, then it doesn't, and I just move on to the next thing. So I'm not going to stress about what that is right now. Things usually work themselves out anyways. It doesn't mean that I don't plan. It doesn't mean that I don't put effort into it. It just means that, I may end up not doing one specific thing for the remainder. It may be several different things that I come in and out of, but that just continues to build my character and who I am as a person. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm back at the initial figuring it out phase, and figuring out. That's right. Figuring out what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's
watch
a
it,
great place
Chance.
to be. You know what? This is the fun part, and I've been thinking about this for the last little while, and I'll shut her down after this one. But we have the opportunity right now. We have the opportunity to do whatever the hell we want. Like, that's the biggest one. We can do whatever we want, and we can be supported by so many people. We have access to the one thing that no veteran group has ever had in history, and that is a communication network that spans the globe instantaneously. If I want to talk to a veteran at any point in time, I can talk to one. If I want to talk to a soldier from basically anywhere in the world, I can. If I want to talk to a civilian, if I want to talk to a public servant, if I want to talk to a police officer, if I want to whatever, look on Instagram. It's right there. Bang. If you want to talk to somebody, there's someone there. And most of them will talk to you. So we have this network, and we can use it. And really, to my own benefit, my morale is maintained by the fact that I get to talk to cool fucking people on the reg. Right? This is it.
Case in point, like last March, I was able to reach out to first responders in Germany for my train wreck, right?
Yeah.
And I was able to talk to the first guys who were first on scene, and just really talk to firefighters, the first police officers who were there, and all that stuff, and just have some nice chats about it, and just be like, all right, cool, because for 20 years I was all alone based off of that, and being able to be like, oh no, all this social media, it's like, my post got shared 1,500 times, and I was putting with all these first responders who were there, like, hey, fuck, we remember you. I'm like, yeah, that's what's up. It's like, well, cool. All right. Well, we can put that to bed. And that's just a really cool thing, because I'm never going to Germany or trying to find these people. I didn't have any of that information at the time, but one post, and it's like, I'm instantly connected within 72 hours.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's fantastic. And this is
right.
Goes to Adam's point about being able to collab, right? Nobody works better in a team than military people that are used to working in a team. And man, I've done some wicked shit with the Canadian Walk for Veterans. I've done some awesome stuff with the podcast. I got this thing. I'm having a blast, and all I get to do is I get to talk to rad people like this. How hard is this? So before we shut her down right now, anybody got any final points, anything burning that they want to get off their chest about morale or their personal thoughts? Or are all good? Everyone's good? Crickets? All right, cool. Well, I can't thank you all enough. First off, it has been absolutely outstanding. It's been a great conversation. We covered everything from personal morale to kit to leadership to a little bit on how we're going to fix the problems with the world eventually. and it's been fantastic. So thank you all very much. This has been wicked. And with that, I'm going to